go to Jake in Sacramento, California. What's up, brother Jake?
Hey, thank you for taking my call, Dr. John. How are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Doing all right. Well, I have an issue. So my wife is a survivor of domestic violence from a prior relationship, of course. And she has a lot of things that cause like triggering events for her.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know how I can best be an advocate for her during that time. What I can do, try to help her get past that. I know it's going to take a lot of time for her to heal, and she may always have that kind of issue, but
yeah,
what can I do to help her?
Man, she's lucky to have you. It's awesome.
Thank you.
How long you been married?
Oh, boy. Going on 5 years.
Okay. So tell me about triggers and episodes and what happens.
Yeah. So if we go to like a certain part of town where some of these things took place, she'll kind of like panic and get real quiet. And if she sees someone that looks like him, it's the same thing. She just kind of goes into this panic and kind of closes into herself, if that makes sense. Won't say anything, just kind of freezes.
Yep.
If she feels like she's stuck, like let's say we're in the bathroom getting ready together in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed this when we first got married. She would kind of do the same thing. So now I intentionally get ready on the side where I'm kind of stuck in the room, and she has the right next to the door,
Sure.
So just kind of those things.
What
can't
about
go to certain?
We can't go to certain restaurants?
Yeah.
Okay.
Certain restaurants. We can't go to like the ski park up in north of us, and just stuff like that.
Man. Okay. Tell me about, as much as you feel comfortable, tell me about sexual intimacy. Y'all good?
It's fantastic. Sorry.
Oh, we party, brother. No, don't apologize.
It's awesome.
That's awesome.
We waited until we were married.
Okay.
And no, it's been amazing.
Cool. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say some things that people are going to have comments on, and that's fine. But I've just, man, this one's close to home for me, and so I'm going to be pretty direct, okay?
Okay.
Number one, your wife's lucky to have you. Most partners can be, many partners can be insensitive to this. They don't care or get over it or deal with it, whatever. And it sounds like you are interested in your wife feeling safe and your wife being well, when I think that she is lucky to have you. Good for you. I'm glad that that's your impulse and that's your heart. That's so good.
Thank you.
So here, the basics of trauma is this: is her body remembers these stories, remembers the location of these stories, remembers the guy who hurt her in the past, where she was hurt, what was happening when she was hurt, the environment. And her body is now, like if you think about like Terminator 2, one of those scanning things with like the red, night goggle vision, right? Those red lights. She's just scanning the environment 24/7, 365 for the next time she's going to get hurt. And her body's identified locations, people, meal, like whatever, like all this environmental stuff, all the ecosystem stuff. And when she finds herself in these places and she can't run, and she can't fight it, she's learned. You just go numb, right? We're going to freeze. We're going to shut this sucker down. And here's the hard truth. You can, like you were doing, be really careful about environmental triggers. This part of town's no bueno. I'm not going to this part of town. These restaurants aren't good. We're not going to the hockey game. Cool, we're not going to the hockey game. You need to stand on this side of the bathroom. Cool, I'll stand on that side of the bathroom. Those kind of things you've been really accommodating for. Those are avoidant. Those aren't healing.
Right.
Okay. Ultimately, your wife is going to have to decide that she is not going to live under an identity of ex-survivor. That she is going to say, I survived X. I lived through it. Now I'm going to be about the healing journey that comes next. And lucky for her, there are some incredible trauma treatments, right? And I do think, given what you just explained to me, I do think she needs to get with a trauma counselor. And some of these things might take years. Some of these things, given her partnership with you, given that she's got a safe home, man, some of these things may be 12 or 14 sessions, and that's it. And here's what trauma counseling does. It teaches you ways to begin to take control back of your own body. I'm going to control my breathing. I'm going to do these 2 or 3 things when my heart rate takes off on me. I'm going to learn these body safety things. And then, with the help of a therapist, after 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions, we are then going to go back through the trauma narrative. And here's why I'm going to do that. I'm going to take these new tools I have about how to let my body know that we're safe now. We weren't, but we are now. And we're going to stop our bodies from telling this old story in the present through, diarrhea, through vomiting, through shutting down, through getting silent, through getting scared, through clenching, all those things that trauma survivors experience. And we're going to go back through the trauma narrative. We're going to tell that story until it's exposure, right? Until my body stops taking off on me. Or when it does, I know how to take care of it. We're going to things like exposure therapy. We're going to go to the other part of town. And we're going to have these new tools, and we're going to breathe through. When we were in this part of town 10 years ago, 8 years ago, we weren't safe. Now we're safe. Now we're okay. And this is a process, but it starts with her deciding, I want my body to heal. And here's where that's really hard. Number one, we live in a culture that gives identity to the worst thing that ever happened to you. That becomes who we are, that we live out of. And the second thing that makes this really hard is that type of thinking in our minds and in our bodies keeps us safe. It kept us alive. And what we have to know is the things that work to keep us alive then are slowly killing us now. And that's a hard shift. It will feel for a season like she's losing control, like she is intentionally putting herself in harm's way. And that's where those new things we learn about how to breathe through things, how to roll with things, how to, instead of clamming up, to reach over and grab your hand, how to lean into that discomfort when we're surrounded by people that are keeping us safe, that have our safety in mind. And then slowly the body goes, oh, yeah, we're good. We're good now. And then 2 years, 3 years down the road, you'll be in another part of town and she'll have forgotten about it. And she'll be like, oh, look at this. We're in this part, right? That's going to take some work, but she's going to have to decide that.
Right.
Here's where this is hard. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. She has gone to several counselors.
Okay.
And a lot of them say that they can't do anything. A lot of them have broken down crying in the middle of their sessions, which is interesting.
Hey, that sort of empathy I'm okay with, but you can't talk your way out of something that somebody beat into you.
Right.
There's no amount of, oh, okay. This is something that you have to practice. And whether it's TFCBT or whether it's EMDR, whether it's some of these things, TFCBT is usually with kids, but there's some great counselors who can help. So I would specifically ask for somebody who is skilled in seeking safety, skilled in trauma counseling. What's frustrating for me is when you get with a good trauma counselor, the healing can be, not always, can be relatively fast. A couple of months. 6 or 7 months, 3 or 4 months, maybe a year. And so if there's systemic abuse that went over years and years and years from your parents and sexual abuse, some of that stuff will last for years and years. Some stuff can be healed quicker if the therapist knows what they're doing. And if you have a client who's willing to jump in with both feet. But just traditional, let's just sit down and talk about this. Man, there's some literature that suggests that's re-traumatizing. Because your body's re-experiencing this, but you haven't given your body any new tools on how to deal with it. That's why I'm such an advocate of writing stuff down. That's why I'm such an advocate of breath work. That's why I'm such an advocate of moving your body, letting these stress chemicals, when they set off, letting them have a place to cycle through and not just get stuck in your body and loop and loop and loop and loop. I'm a huge fan of EMDR. I'm a huge fan of body movement therapy, right? There's a lot of modalities if you get a trained person in your corner. And I hate that you guys got somebody that didn't know what they were doing. Or they didn't stop and say, hey, I need to pass you on. I've got a reference of 3 people that can help specifically with this sort of physical abuse trauma. I hate that for y'all. Please don't give up on therapy just because y'all got a couple of bad apples, okay?
Yeah, no.
Cool.
She's been actively looking.
Cool. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you a copy of my new book, Own Your Past, Change Your Future. Okay, so I want you to hang on the line. I'm going to send it to you for free. It's my gift. And y'all read that together. And
Okay.
there's sections in the book on trauma. The whole book is about empowering people to say, you know what, I am worth what comes next. And while we do walk through it, it's not a substitute for trauma therapy, but I do believe it will really, really help somebody in their journey as they're walking out of something like this, okay?
I
And
appreciate it.
also it'll help you because I know this is hard for you. And people don't talk enough about loved ones who love people who have experienced trauma. And some of this rubs off on you, and some of this you begin to look in the mirror and be like, am I just worthless? What about me? And then you feel bad for thinking, what about me? Am I right?
Yeah, spot on.
Okay. So I want you to read this book too, because y'all read it together. And what would be really cool if y'all read this together and you read a chapter, she read a chapter, and then y'all had some time to talk about it, or you had a journal that you kept between the two of you and you wrote about what you thought in chapter 1 and then you handed it to her. And y'all go back and forth and y'all keep a dialogue going. And for someone who's experienced trauma, the act of saying it out loud can be brutal. So having a place to write it down might be a great thing for you two to do together. And then my goal is, if I've done my job, at the end of this book, you're both on the same team, ready to take on the world. And when you get there, man, healing becomes a way of life. It's not this big, scary, overwhelming thing. Okay. So hear me say this. There's a bright light at the end of the tunnel. And for your wife, that light it's the size of a ballpoint pen. And hold her hand through this. And I think y'all are going to be heading in a good direction. Therapists listening to the show, if somebody comes into your office, do not ask for the trauma story in the first session, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, until you've equipped them with some skills, some things they can practice. Because when they start down that road and their body takes off on them, it's traumatizing to just sit in your office and have a discussion about what happened to you in the past without giving them any tools. It's unethical. Don't do that. It hurts people. And I also know, because I've been there, a client walks in and says, hey, you're not going to believe what happened. And you literally want to know. I'm curious. Stop them and say, there will be time in this session to hear about the assault, the rape, the time that somebody beat you within an inch of your life, someone that you loved. There will be time to tell that story. That's not today. We're going to do some work so that when we go down that road, when we're ready for that, when you're ready for that, then we'll be able to go through that story together, and I'll be right here with you, and you'll have some tools on how to deal with it. Please be a therapist of integrity. And if you're not equipped to deal with trauma, you better get equipped quick, because that's the 22nd century, the 21st century, and all the people coming over from the 20th century. That's our job now. Get equipped, get equipped. Take every CEU you can, read every book you can, get all the trainings you can, learn how to be a trauma-informed therapist. Start today.